So, good afternoon, and welcome to the September 10th, 2024 Budget Committee meeting. And we'll be working with our amended agenda today. We're going to start out with an executive session, and we're going to hear Mazzarides versus the Town of Greenwich. I think et al., Arthur Greco. And we will not be hearing the Moran versus the Town of Greenwich case today. So we'll be doing that next month. So do I have a motion to go into an executive session?
So moved.
It's moved by Harry Fisher,
Second.
seconded by Leslie Moriarty at 1:08. Those in favor? And that's unanimous. So we're moving into executive session, and all microphones need to be off. So we have just returned from executive session where we had a motion to leave the executive session made by Leslie Moriarty. It's made by Harry Fisher, second by Leslie Moriarty. Obviously it was unanimous. And that was at 1:37, right. So our next agenda item is HD2 Health, and it's from the Health Department for an approval to use a PHEP grant for $34,903. And we welcome Deb Edwards to present this to us.
Good afternoon. And I have Matt Inginato next to me, the business office manager. So I'm here, thank you for seeing us, thank you. So this grant we get every year, it's for the PHEP grant, which is the Public Health Emergency Preparedness. The amount is $34,903. The funds will be used to support the permanent part-time emergency preparedness coordinator and their salary and his mileage.
Super. So do we have any questions? Harry?
Yeah, this seems to be a temporary position for a very important role.
No, it's
So
permanent part-time.
it's a permanent position?
Yes, it's a permanent,
Permanent part-time?
yes.
Okay. So this is someone who's going to travel, learn stuff, bring it back, and still be around to continue to do the job?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
he's been doing this they had the grant for years, but David's been with us for over 5 years now.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just, is the amount of this grant amount what you expected? I was trying to look up what last year's was.
It
but
went
this
down
gets
a
you.
little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
But you have enough to cover what's needed for the role?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to recommend approval to use the PHEP grant for $34,903.
Second.
And I'll suggest that it be routine.
Routine.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
motion made by Leslie Moriarty, seconded by David Weisbrod, to use the PHEP grant for $34,903. Those in favor?
Aye.
So that motion passed unanimously, and it's routine, so you don't have to return next Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Afternoon.
400. Okay, so next up, we have the fire department, and it's FD1 we're going to, I think Roland has broken this into two pieces, Charlie. We have the fire department for $300,000 for additional appropriation for maintenance of two engines. And we have with us today our fire chief, Joe McHugh, and we have our two assistant fire chiefs, Charlie Lebowicki and Justin McCarthy also.
Yes.
Good afternoon, committee members. FD1 actually breaks down into two separate areas as well. So if you follow along, I know I sent a lot of information in the sheet if you got, in the booklet if you got to look at it. So the first half of FD1 is $150,000 for equipment that was damaged on engine one in the in the accident on the highway. As you know, we are regulated by OSHA and NFPA and a lot of other standards. So there's a lot of equipment on that truck that had to go and have testing done, making sure that it was still certified. You know, for example, the breathing air packs that we wear in fires, they were jostled around a lot, so they had to go through testing to see if they would still be used. Some of them, air pack, the bottles that hold the air had a lot of gouges in them and were not recertified, for example. Some of the Hearst equipment was in the compartment, unfortunately, that had the original point of contact, and a lot of that damage was severely damaged or was recommended for replacement, that it wasn't even worth trying to fix it at all, especially some of the tools that we use for extrication of people from cars and accidents are hydraulic, so they're electric based, and they have computers in them, and once those motherboards in there that are the brains of the operation are damaged, it's very hard to have anything fixed on that, especially because having a lot of equipment that is damaged in an accident this way is not covered under the warranty of what we do. So that is all of the equipment in section 1 of that. Some of that was for that testing, and then some of that is on replacement cost in there, and I can go into further detail on that if you would like. The second part, oh yes.
Just to ask a question on that one part, is this for replacement to use on the engines which you're putting into service while engine one situation is coming up soon for replacement, or is this in anticipation of the new engine?
No, this is for immediate replacement of things that are needed, because on some items, we are now either below what we need to have for all of the companies, or we're pressing older units, items into service that don't have the reliability factor that we need to keep them moving.
Thank you.
So, in which engines are these going on, and where are they currently housed?
So most of this would be for engine 1, and engine 1 is currently rotating between using engine 11 and engine 51 as the frontline piece. Now, it's a 20-year, both of those are 20-year-old apparatus responsible for responding to over 2,000 calls a year.
So, okay, thank you. I'm going to ask another question, but I think probably later is better.
Okay.
Sorry
All right.
to
So-
interrupt you.
No worries. Section 2 of this is after consultation with the fleet department, $150,000 of needed repairs, and I don't want to call them upgrades per se, but repairs, for lack of a better term, to engine 11 and engine 51 for them to run constantly as this frontline apparatus as a spare. So in Appendix C, I put some information from Fleet. We have a great fleet department. The mechanics are very skilled. They are short-staffed. They just don't have a bandwidth to do a lot of this stuff, and some of this stuff is very technical, and it needs to be done by a third party, which is one of the drivers of the price there. There's really 3 main things that we're looking to fix on these 2 trucks, and we really believe that this is what we need to get them to just go 3 to 5 years. You know, the main plan of the fire department apparatus replacement plan was that a fire pumping apparatus would do 10 years in frontline status and then do 10 years in more of a reserve status or running as a volunteer truck that could then come back up. But then after 20 years, because of where we're located, the wear and tear on the vehicles, we have a lot of long driving times, and we have a lot of salt in our air being on the coastline here. We see a lot of degradation to the frames of these vehicles. So with that being said, both of these vehicles do not have working air conditioning. So instead, a full redo of air conditioning on these vehicles would be a large amount of money. So we worked with the fleet department and our third party to come up with whether we can come up with some kind of middle ground, if, for lack of a better term, an RV style air conditioning that would make it semi acceptable to be driving around in when you're wearing heavy gear and it's 100 degrees in the middle of the summer. It definitely is a wear and tear on the firefighters. The second part of that is all of our apparatus, other than these two, have these things called on-spot chains that are used in light snow to help with traction before we have to put a full sets of chains on the vehicles. And these are very specific vehicles that have different parts than the other trucks that we have. It has some European parts on it. And so instead of a regular Jacobs brake, engine brake retarder system on it, they have what is called a Telma magnetic retarder on it, which then needs a German engineered, Rude is the name of the company, chain system. That needs a whole different setup. And it was put off because they didn't think these vehicles were going to be used enough for those to be on it, but it's something that we feel is important for safety. The third and largest part of that ask is the repair of the subframe and water cradles on both engine 11 and engine 51, and on the pictures that were in the packet in the back there, you can see a lot of the severe rust on the vehicles, which is why the fleet department said this is something that really needs to be looked at carefully if we are going to try to keep these vehicles running for another 3 to 5 years, mostly in frontline status.
Questions? Harry?
If I could ask, I mean, the rust looks pretty severe.
Yes.
Am I to understand that this is mainly the structure that supports the water tank? Or is it the actual frame?
It's a combination of a bunch of different parts. So if you look, part of it is the subframe members, part of it is the cradle that holds the water tank, and then some of them are parts for. Let's see here, as I just thumbed through here. Some of it is the metal parts for the braking system and the electrical system as well. So I believe in one of them there's a picture of the air chamber for the air brakes that is completely rusted through.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that these, I mean, that it seemed to have gotten to a pretty severe point, even as backup trucks.
Yes.
It did.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions, Leslie? So I have a question actually for Roland. Roland, these seem to be, as Charlie's described them, items that would, going to have a new life of, well, for the remaining usage of these engines, and maybe longer. I guess, I don't know whether we get rid of them after they no longer need to back up for engine one, but shouldn't these be capital items, and shouldn't this be in our capital account rather than in the general fund? I mean, it seems to me these are depreciable items. I'm not objecting to the items themselves, but how we would book this. I mean, they become permanent parts of these engines, correct, Charlie? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yes.
They become permanent parts of the engines. They're not things that people are taking home or something.
No, but what's the life expectancy of these engines now? How much longer are they going to go?
They're going to be leaving hopefully in 2027.
Well, you said 3 to 5 years is
3
what
to
you
5
told us.
years, yes.
3 to 5 years is what the document says.
That's why I said hopefully in 2027 we'll have new
Right.
apparatus here to replace it.
Our life is at least 5 years. So if it's going to be gone in 3 years, this is
Okay,
not a depreciable item.
okay. Thank you. So why don't, should we just, let's hear the other one, and then we'll vote after we've, because they originally sent them in as two, but I think Roland felt that it should be as one. And then, actually, I'm going to have another question. And in the past, this kind of equipment, wouldn't it, I mean, I actually like doing things department by department, so I want to give you my prejudice first. But, that aside, the way it's been done, and I've certainly recommended we go back to departments, Roland, this is being done in the fire department. This is inconsistent with the current process, is it not, to put things in the fleet department? But you think this is,
I mean, we can put it in the fleet department just because I assume fleet's going to be part of the negotiations and the procurement process.
Yes.
We can put it in the fleet department.
well, the only point here is, Roland, I think we should just make sure, whichever way we're doing it, that we do it consistently. I actually prefer it in the fire department or police department or wherever, DPW, whatever it is, and would like to return to the old methodology.
If I can make one point, though.
Yes, John.
If FD1 is not split, half of that money would be stuff that we would be responsible for buying, like equipment that were on the vehicle that fleet would not have an issue with, that would not have any interaction with. And then the second part of it would, in theory, be through them.
So the question is, with the 150 that is the repairs going to?
Your mic's not on.
Correct.
Are we, Leslie Talkington, are we saying the 150 for repairs go into fleet, but the 150 for equipment stay in the fire department?
Right, yeah, just for a point of clarification.
So, I mean, quite frankly, I don't think this is really me, David. I think this is really more, Roland and Pete making sure that we're consistently booking with fleet and/or fire. So, in either case, I'm just asking, Roland to consider it, continue to talk with Charlie, and if necessary, to talk with fleet, and then just do whatever they, from my standpoint, I would support it being either way. It's just that I'm not the accountant for the town, and
No,
we need consistency.
No, I understand, but then, just to be clear, for Charlie's benefit, and maybe Roland needs to answer it, I think the answer is that the 150 for the repairs is fleet, and the 150 for the equipment is the fire. Is that what you have in mind, Roland?
Well, can I just, before, and I'd like to just make a comment here. If it's going on the new engine that's being ordered, then
It's not.
both 150s aren't going to any new engine. You kept saying
Correct.
engine one.
Yes.
Temporary engine.
Yes.
Oh, temporary engine one.
Yes. Yes.
Harry has a question before that.
There, yeah.
Yeah, the question is, you're using an outside contractor for the repairs. Is
Correct.
fleet going to be involved in working with that outside contractor, or is that basically between the fire department administration and the contractor?
Usually, the fleet department liaisons with our third-party vendors that we send trucks to, because they're the knowledge base of what has to be fixed. So they would
You've got
usually
it
be
all
the one going.
specced out here anyway.
Correct.
But, so, I think that, if Roland can speak with Charlie and, with Fleet, and just decide the right place. I mean, to me, I will support wherever the right place is.
In the past, we have done things with third parties where we've paid direct to, not through Fleet, even though Fleet was involved. I think we have a very interesting dynamic that is set up between ourselves and the Fleet department.
And as I said, I would prefer to see it in the fire department. I just want to make sure that we're clear and we at least know direction.
Roland is saying either
Understood.
place.
Just,
Leslie.
if I can add, just to state the obvious, I mean, for administrative purposes, you just want to be clear of who should be signing off on the invoices. You don't want to have to chase
Absolutely.
paperwork. So that's really the end result of this discussion. But it needs to be decided, because when it goes to the RTM, even to us, we're authorizing a single department to be the signatory for the expenses.
Right.
Which is why I'm leaving it to finance, I think. Okay, so I think what we said we were going to now talk about the proposed request for the engine, and I'm now looking for this since they've been separated. I thought I tagged everything.
Page 145.
I have no idea what page
Specs.
145 is.
The cover sheet's on 202. Oh, sorry. 202 is a PDF, so let's see.
I mean, you'd think it'd be before here.
It wasn't done. So no, the cover sheet should be first, but it's sitting right before the finance one. Pages aren't numbered, so I can't help you, but it was right after
Well,
the
anyway,
pictures.
anyway, oh, so it's near the end, after all the information.
It's right before
Okay,
the finance,
so,
You want to
so,
see it?
well, now what we want to do is we want to talk about
Here, Leslie.
FD1.
FD2.
FG2.
FD2 was the engine.
Okay, I'm sorry. We want to talk about FD2 for $1,265,000, which is an additional appropriation for the replacement apparatus.
Yes.
Two,
Okay.
if you want to go to one on the PDF.
Yeah, I'm showing you. That's helpful.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. I think that the sheets, the description, Leslie, wasn't changed. It's consistent for both of them, but anyway, So why don't you describe and tell us what's going on and what you've done and working with Pierce and your dealer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, so this is a
Thank you.
request for 1.265 million to be able to go forward with a spot in the assembly line for a replacement engine that is based specifically on the spec of a engine that we have that should be coming to us in November of 2025, so we didn't reinvent the wheel on anything. However, we have had a lot of conversations with them about trying to get earlier spots because at this point, our projected delivery date would be 43 to 46 months away from when it is ordered. With that being said, we've actually had some meetings with Pierce and the management in Wisconsin. And unfortunately, the situation that we are in is our chances of getting a earlier spot on the line is if another municipality defaults on that, or if there is a stock vehicle that is available that no one for some reason wants, which is very hard to come by these days, and meets requirements that we would need. So that is the first part of our request there. Now, it would be under the same agreement that we did with the last engine that we purchased, where if we do pay for the engine in full, they do a discount now, so it would bring the price of the engine down to just under 1 million, I think it's 1.097 is just about what it would be, so there would be some kind of savings there. On that, but we have another meeting next month with them to see if they've had any luck with trying to find an earlier spot for us. We also reached out to other manufacturers, not with a lot of luck. Mostly after also talking with the fleet department, they like the standardization of our equipment, knowing that all of our things are going to the same shop to be fixed. They can stock the same parts for all of our vehicles, and it streamlines our operations as best we can. Also, if we take engine one, the engine who was in the accident aside, once again, we have a great fleet department. We're a heavy burden on the fleet department. We are aware of that. There's a lot of required preventative maintenance for our vehicles, and they can't control when they have people get injured or people decide to retire, and they're always kind of at a little bit of shortness right now, just kind of like the fire department is with having to hire 10 firefighters in a year. With that, being said, we're averaging almost 1.5 apparatus out of service per day since the accident. Because we do have to rely on a lot of third-party stuff being done. Our two engines that our three engines that are still Seagrave, they have to go up to Windsor Locks to be fixed. So it just takes a lot more time to get them out there to get fixed and come back. as well as any other specialty work that would have to be done, like in the FD1 request would be done in the Waterbury area. So it's not exactly close for it at all, so it does increase our downtime of apparatus.
So just on the, first on the financial piece, if I'm calculating the discount for paying up front, it's 13%, correct? So about that, right?
Yes, I believe it's on the cover sheet of the, yeah, it's,
It's going down to $1.1 million from 1.265.
260, yes.
So that's 13%. So, you know, from a financial standpoint, that seems to be a good investment. It's not something that we're not going to get. When is the delivery expected?
It's 43 to 46 months currently, unless we could find something earlier on the line. I think an asterisk to that too is if there is an earlier spot on the line, there might be another fee to get that earlier spot as well.
Why would that be the case? Because they can sell it to the highest bidder?
Yes.
Okay, I guess
Yes.
it's
But
capitalism.
just to freshen the memory of the committee, we do have an engine that is scheduled to arrive in 2025, like I said earlier, and we are currently finishing working with the Pierce engineers for 2 other engines that we would hopefully would be coming in 2027, 2028 as well. And that this would replace the engines in the fleet that were bought before 2010. So the 1998, the 2 from 2004, and the 1 from 2007. So by the time they come in, it would be an engine that's 30 years old, 2 that are around 24 years old, and another engine that's 20 years old.
Yeah, I'm looking from a couple budget goes, looking at your equipment sheet. So the engine that you're expecting in 2025 was, do you know which one that was to replace?
That'll be replacing the 1998 engine, which is engine FE031.
31, which is a spare right now. So you're going to continue then to operate with the current 2 engines as being the, whether it's engine 1 or
Correct. And
however you number them, your extra, your
Yes,
needed
and
engine
the
for
reason we
fleet.
did that was it's easy for redundancy because they are pretty much the same engine with the same setup. So if one goes out, the same equipment can go into the same compartments, where if we use one of the other trucks that has a little different of a configuration, it changes a little more. So this is for ease of use for the crews as well. And once again, after talking with Fleet, expecting a 20-year-old truck to constantly just be used by itself for 3 years is probably going to be a hard sell for that truck on wear and tear.
My other questions really have to do with just getting an update on where we are with the insurance claim.
That's
So-
for mine. I had one actually on the previous one too, and I've waited.
Okay, so I didn't know if anyone else has a question on this
No, I think we
purchase.
Respond to any questions.
Karen had her hand raised too.
I just have a question on the bonding.
We're not to the bonding,
I'm sorry. Okay.
but we will get to that in a minute.
And I didn't hear you. Did you say that you were going to get an update on the insurance? Because,
We haven't talked about the insurance either on either one, FD1 or FD2, so that's going to be the next topic, and then we'll get to the bonding. Then we decided, Karen, just so you know, to just approve all of these things at one time. So we're sort of talking through all these pieces, and then we're going to do all, rather than, sometimes we, we talk about something and approve it, talk about something and approve it. This time, we're going to kind of do it as a department, because it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
So the next one is the insurance. I have questions too, but, no, you start, you said you had questions? and
No,
now-
I just wanted to get an update on where we are with, and what we know about the insurance claim for engine 1, to understand our financial impact from this.
An email that went out this morning from Megan. There's a debate between the insurance company and the town, replacement value versus depreciated value. The depreciated value net, some small deductibles is 5-something, and they're still trying to argue replacement value, which puts it over $1 million. That hasn't been resolved as of this morning.
So, right, and I think I forwarded that email to you. You'll see it in your emails with the exact, but it's about 550,000, I think.
That's right.
Said in the email that they expect some indication by Thursday or Friday, so we might get more
Correct.
insight before the BET on Monday.
But this is also a lessons learned. We should know what what our insurance is for so many of these things, because, whatever. Do you have more questions on insurance? So,
Just,
I do, I'm going to ask another one
All right, go
after you. No, you, please.
the only other question is, the other equipment that was damaged in the truck, is that also eligible for some insurance claim?
We had some, if I just may, we had some conversations with Megan about that. However, I believe it kind of took a backseat to the larger insurance issue that they're dealing with, and that we were going to revisit that again. But she thought that it was definitely up for consideration.
Thank you. David?
No, that was my question.
Okay, so, I have a question. So if it's the depreciable values, Pete, and then that would sort of almost eliminate some of this other, wouldn't it? Perhaps the smaller items that you're talking about, the 300,000. Since this is a very large overall, it's $1.5 million, and so it's, more or less triple the amount of insurance. So there's a differential of about $1 million. Do we ever take legal action? Because this was damaged in an accident, to get the differential between our insurance claims and the value at market to repurchase? And how would we go about that, or what are the steps? Amana's not with us anymore, she was with us earlier, but do we do such things, and if not, why not, and what would be the next steps?
The answer is yes. However, I don't have all the facts. And from what I understand, and I can get it more accurate for Monday, is we tried to subrogate the claim. I believe that the trailer had a false license plate on it. I don't believe any of the parts of the vehicles were insured by the third party. But I would prefer to have a documented follow-up to that question for Monday. But we did try to subrogate the claim, but there was a series of mishaps between the driver and the insurance the company as far as insuring the vehicles.
I see signals going back and forth here.
No, I thought there was insurance.
There is insurance, but I couldn't speak to whether it was actual motor vehicle insurance or if it was
Yeah.
like a company's umbrella in policy or anything. I could not speak to that at all.
Yeah, I could have that for you Monday.
Okay, super. If you would follow up on that, that would be great.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry, do we have any more questions on where we are to date without getting to the bonding? Elliot?
Yeah, I just had maybe a naive question is, the fact that this occurred on an interstate highway, does that entitle us to any reimbursement, either at the state or federal level? It seems like we are supporting all of the
So, excuse me, maybe we could just lend Elliot a microphone, or he could just come over here someplace, so we can just get that, Elliot. It's hard for the, television.
Sorry. Thank you. Thanks, Roland. So my question is, because this occurred on an interstate highway, are we entitled to any state or federal reimbursement? I guess that's the first question.
Not that we're aware of.
So it seems to me that the fire department spends a lot of resources and money on working on, and the police force as well, incidentally, on on I-95, and a lot of those people are not town residents or state residents. There are people passing through, and obviously accidents happen. And so here we are, we've got to sort of clean up their mess. It just seems like we're not charging people. We don't get any revenue that we're collecting from all of these people that are using our resources. And in worst case scenario, like recently occurred, we've got to, we're footing the bill.
And in this case, at least at this point, it's probably at least $1 million.
Yeah, it's a big bill. I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
So,
Sorry, if I could just comment on that. On certain things, if there's been a hazardous material spill, like there's gasoline or diesel on the ground, and we use certain materials to pick that up, that will be reimbursed to the town as in like an exchange. So if we use a bag of Speedy Dry, the third-party contractor that comes and does the full cleanup will then reimburse us and give us that bag directly. That's usually one of the things that happens. But as far as like safety supplies, as you're speaking about on the highway, I believe last year we spent over $20,000 in flares and cones that were run over and other things just that we use in regular response to the highway. So yes, it is a large cost, but it is part of the things that we do for our taxpayers as part of the tax base.
well, I think that Elliot's point is, this is, you're doing it for the good of people. But I don't think, per Elliot's point, is he doesn't feel, and, I would tend to agree with him, that this is not necessarily good for our Greenwich taxpayers to spend $1 million because out of pocket because of this accident. I think that was his point. And I do
Understood,
think
yes.
it's got some, and Pete, have you heard anything about other towns or, raising these kind of issues? Or are they just not so generous and don't go out to the highways and do these kind of things?
At the same time, we had the Stamford Fire Department come and help us on the Strickland fire, right?
Yes.
And I'm not sure, they're not charging us for that, or no?
No.
That's kind of mutual aid, though, within a town versus the highways.
But it would seem to make a lot of sense to have some revenue attached to the interstate highway that gets divided up among the towns, to support, the costs associated with that.
I think your point is well raised, and, maybe you can help our first selectman and Pete draft a letter to our federal representatives.
Happy to help on that.
Okay, so if we have no more points on this, we'll go to the bonding resolution. Any comments on the bonding resolution? I think Karen had one, right? Do you have any?
My question is, if this is going to take 43 to 46 months, why are we bonding now? Because wouldn't the bonding lapse before it's, no?
No, we always have to have a financing source when we appropriate, but we don't actually issue the bonds until we need the money. But in this case, Pete, we actually would if we have to pay early in order to get the discount. Is that correct?
Charlie said that we were working with a prepayment arrangement from Million 91.
Right.
So the cash would be needed immediately
Right.
Before we go to market in January.
So that would be that would not be our normal process, Karen, but in this case, they would get a discount, which I think Leslie computed as 13%. So that should cover the costs of the bonding for this period, as long as there's no further delays in the production line.
And just to address what could be a follow-up question, which is why don't we just bond for the $1,097,000? I think the answer was provided by Charlie already, which is if a space becomes available earlier, we might have to pay a premium at that point to get the space. So I'd prefer to authorize the higher dollar amount as if we're not going to get that benefit. And just to give them flexibility to be able to act at that time. We do not bond, we won't bond for the amount if we don't need it. We can lapse if there is an excess authorization in this case.
Yeah, Michael. Harry?
You know, Pete and Roland, if we do get an insurance settlement before we actually go to the bond market, do you then reduce the amount by the insurance settlement?
Yes, it would just be like a school construction reimbursement.
Okay, thanks.
Karen, are you okay?
Yep. Oh, sorry.
What?
Never mind, I misheard.
You looking for a motion?
So I think the motions I would like would be individually, so that we have a record. So are you willing to move our first item, which is FD1 for 300,000?
I move that we appropriate $300,000 under FD1.
Second that.
So moved by
Yeah, I
David
think these need to be
Weisbrod.
non-routine.
Seconded by Harry Fisher, non-routine. Those in favor?
Aye.
So that motion passes 4-0-0. It's non-routine, so they're expecting you to come back. Our next motion, I'm looking for a motion for FD2,
I move,
Fire Department for $1,265,000.
I move we grant that motion, FD2, for $1,265,000.
Second.
So moved by David Weisbrod, seconded by Harry Fisher. Another non-routine item, correct, guys?
Correct.
David, you're okay? Non-routine?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so those in favor?
Aye.
And that is 4-0-0.
And I
So,
move we grant the bonding resolution, we approve the bonding resolution, FI1 for $1,265,000.
as
Second.
presented. As presented.
Second, as non-routine.
Okay, and so moved by David Weisbrod, seconded by Harry Fisher. Non-routine item. Those in favor?
Aye.
4-0. So they all passed unanimously, 3 motions. However, we're expecting you to, Harry's expecting you to return for the next BET agenda. And Pete's going to do some follow-up on the insurance so that we'll have a better handle on the insurance, hopefully prior to that meeting.
And Roland on which department?
Right. So, but
Okay.
other than that, that's.
See you Monday. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Yep, take care, Joe.
And the insurance also, Pete, if we know as to whether it covers the damaged equipment, as well as,
No.
yeah, both items.
Pete, just for a record, do we know who the 4th fire person was with them today? Can't hear you. Do you know who the 4th fire, if we should have asked them, who the 4th fire person was with them today? He was back in the corner?
I saw 3.
Maybe you could run and find out. Thanks, Elliot. Okay. So, sorry. So next we have up is PD1 from the Police Department for $35,000 in approval to use a Connecticut grant. Again, ARPA funding, which is great. And it's for overtime. And would you like to describe it and
Certainly. Hi.
introduce yourself, Stu, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Captain John Sluzars of the Greenwich Police Department. I have Lieutenant Patrick Smythe with me today who will answer your questions.
Great.
Good afternoon. This is the same grant as last year. We received this grant, the same amount for $35,000 as well. It is for overtime for auto theft, to combat auto theft and the violence associated with auto theft crimes. So it's designed for overtime and/or equipment that's used for that purpose.
And when does this come in, and do you want to?
When? After it gets approved by here, we submit the rest of the paperwork to the state. And the way this does is they front-load the money to us, and then as we use the overtime, we submit a bill quarterly to the state, and we can then pull from that line item in the budget to reimburse for the overtime.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Any motions?
I'll make the motion to approve PD1 for approval to use the Connecticut grant of $35,000.
I'll second that and suggest we make it routine.
Routine, so.
Those in favor?
Yep.
400, that's unanimous. So, thank you for waiting, and you don't have to return.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so next, we have up PW1 from the DPW. It's for $799,000. It's in well, it's a little bit, this is an additional appropriation with a grant, acceptance of a grant, I guess. And this is for traffic signals at Railroad Avenue, basically at Field Point, Prospect, etc. So, welcome. We have our Commissioner, Amy Siebert, and we have our Deputy Commissioner, Jim Michael.
Yes, thank you. So this is for interim request for $799,200. Don't forget the $200 there.
It's 200? It's 200?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to fix that on our, we need to fix this for our other meeting agenda. Thank you. Thank you.
And so last fall, we put in a grant application for what they call the Community Connectivity Grant Program. It's a state program to improve safety and improvements at intersections throughout town. It includes pedestrians, bicycles, et cetera, stuff like that. The primary focus of this project is to replace the signal that's located at the intersection of Prospect, Field Point, and Horse Neck. That's the one right there that's underneath the overpass. It's probably one of our, if we don't necessarily have complete records, but it's probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest, traffic signal we have in town still remaining. So it's to replace the equipment on that. It's to do a few minor improvements to the other two locations, which are Prospect and Railroad and Field Point and Railroad, with push buttons to improve pedestrian access and so forth to the, for the crosswalks and stuff. It's a grant program through the state. It's 100% funding for the construction work. We've done the design in-house and is, I would say, about 95% complete. The construction would be completed, you know, and it's a 100% upfront grant, so they send us the money ahead of time. And then we just have to show at the end of the project that that's what we spent the money on. So, so with that, I think that's.
Harry?
Yeah, the former gas station, as I'll call it, because I remember when it was a gas station, at the corner of Prospect and Field Point. Is the property owner, you worked with the property owner on this, and are they copacetic with the changes there? Are we going to hear anything from that property owner, or?
We are continuing to work with that property owner, and we've been reaching out to them. We've had a couple different conversations over the last few years about improvements there. We're looking to schedule another meeting in the very near future. We haven't, up until just recently when we found out that we got the grant, we kind of let it wait until we knew we had funding for the project before we went back to them and said, okay, this is eminent and looking to move forward with it. But we're hopeful we can make things work out there. If not, we may have a backup, we have an alternative that we can
Okay,
still
are you
fit within the
certain of the
grant.
property lines?
We've
Are you
already,
certain of the property lines?
yes, we've already surveyed the property lines,
Okay.
so, yeah,
All right, so you're working well along and
yes,
trying to resolve that. Okay.
correct.
Thanks.
Leslie?
I just want to make the comment, this project was in our, the selectmen's budget that came to us in January. We discussed it as a budget committee, and you had indicated at that point you were applying for the grant. You had not yet received it. So we removed it from the budget, saying come back when the grant is received. And we do know that our Representative Khanna, Meskers, and Arzeno helped you get the grant, which is now in hand, and are looking for action. We need the action on a timely basis in order to complete the paperwork to comply with the state request. So I just want to put that background out there. I'm hoping that this does not become a controversial item to the board.
So I have a question. What are concurrent pedestrian signals? Is that when it isn't like totally stopping all traffic and you can cross while the traffic is still turning the corner?
It's the opposite of that. So exclusive is when you push the button and everything shuts down except for the pedestrians to move.
It doesn't,
Concurrent is when you push the button and you cross at the same time as the traffic is moving in that same direction. So if, the traffic's moving on Railroad Avenue, you're crossing the side street along with traffic moving. It's what,
Yeah,
you
no, I
typically
understand.
see
I
in New
just-
York and so forth.
yeah. So as long as people in Greenwich understand that, I guess they're getting more and more used to it, because I think some people were used to when it was exclusive. Is that what it was, exclusive?
Yes, exclusive is the other name, yes. And we're seeing more and more people getting used to it. We actually see a lot more people, and we noticed it even before we converted over, where people would come, push the button, and then just move when traffic moved, and then the signal would be shut down, and they'd be halfway up the block, and everybody would be sitting there waiting and cursing and swearing at their, behind their, mad at the pedestrians that don't, so.
So that's how we tell newcomers, right, Jim?
Well, I don't know about that, because I would say I've been around a long time, and I have been one of those pedestrians, sorry to say that, sorry drivers, but I've done that.
So, okay. Karen, did you have any comments on this one? No. Yes, Leslie.
I just have a question for Roland or just generally, this is an additional appropriation. Do we also have an approval to use here, or because we're making the appropriation, we don't need the second
Well, that's what I
action?
wondered too. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Well,
Additional
because, if you look at the
appropriation,
grant
approval to use,
above, the connect, that we just did for the police department, that's just an approval to use. The source of funding is the grant. So maybe we'll cover all bases and say additional appropriation and approval to use
Okay.
when we put it on the
Yeah.
full agenda, if that's okay.
That's a new process, because we have many of these, so we really have to be, I'm not sure I agree with that. But it's clearly, our blue sheet does state that the source of funding is the grant.
But how is that different than the police item?
I don't know. This goes back to doing things consistently, what we were talking about before in terms of fleet department and the fire department. I think that should be overall, we should have a decision on what's the best way to do it. And so I'm going to leave that up to Roland and Pete. So, but I'm ready to
So-
take a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of PW1 for $799,200 for an additional appropriation and approval to use for.
And a grant. Funded by a
Approval
grant.
to use that funded by a grant to improve the 3 intersections.
Moved by Leslie Moriarty,
I second.
second by David Weisel. I'm sorry?
Want to make it routine?
Well, I don't know. Is there going to be any controversy?
Not on our side.
If there's, so far, if, I think that anyone who wants to remove it from being routine has that option at the meeting. That's what I would say. I would make it routine.
All right, let's make it routine then.
I would just say that if our chair finds out that there will be objections, you may need
I'll let you know if I hear
DPW
anything.
members there.
You okay with that, David?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a motion made by Leslie Moriarty, seconded by David Weisbach. That's why I wanted to make sure you were okay with it.
Yeah, yeah.
As a routine application for $799,200. Those in favor? So that's 400, that's unanimous. Okay, so we have a lot of things here today, so I'm just going to take a minute here and move to the next one. Okay, so the next item we have is PW3, again, from Public Works. It's the release of, well, this is it's release of conditions for $250,000 for the Fairfield Road Bridge. And, which is, yeah, $250,000, right? Now, just so we know.
Just as a side note, it's written, it's not right on the sheet.
I'm sorry?
The sheet is incorrect. The cover sheet says additional appropriation.
Well, there was actually some discussion on that. Roland, so Leslie has raised the point here, so we'll start out, that it's listed here as an additional appropriation, but we can discuss that after it's presented by Jim, Michael, or Amy, whoever prefers to do it.
Are you talking about that?
No, can you
cover-
just, this is.
The cover sheet that when we do this paperwork.
The
'cause
blue
we've had
sheet,
some
what used to be
issues-
called blue.
We might have done that by mistake, don't know, but we've had some troubles getting like we change it and it doesn't stick, it defaults to additional appropriation. Do you know what I mean? You know,
We've heard this.
right, and so we've
We
had
thought it
trouble
was
with that. It
fixed.
is a release of, we certainly, as we said in the paperwork here, it's for release of conditions. It's an item that was in the budget a couple seasons ago.
Right.
And it has conditions, so we
Fiscal
just
year
want
24.
to get the conditions released.
So, would you like to explain, this is Fairfield Road, explain what it is? The request, please.
Yeah, so Fairfield Road, between Old Church and Hillside area, there's a culvert that goes underneath the road. When we came in for the original request, it was for the design funding. We were looking into what type of state funding program it would fall into, and we didn't have clarity at that time. And I believe the condition was put on it to get clarity on what the state funding mechanism was. At the time, we thought it might be falling into the local bridge program, which is actually a 50-50 program right now. However, what we've determined is because of the road classification and the size of the culvert and a few other factors that they've indicated, they said that it does not fall into that program. It would fall into the lot SIP program. And the way that program works is the town or the municipality is responsible for 100% of the design funding, and the state then funds 100% of the construction. So, so that actually is a better deal for us. So we we will be putting this into the lot SIP application process. That's a competitive process through WestCog. One of the things that they require us to have is significant design drawings completed in order to put that in, because there is other projects that are out there from other municipalities competing. They're looking for projects that are close to being ready for construction when they appropriate these things into these grant programs. So we plan to, the hope is we get the condition released so that then we can move on to the final design process. We've done a little bit of conceptual design process just to get an idea of what is necessary for this project. We understand that this is in proximity to the North Street Bridge and the Hillside Road Route 1 area. We are going, we think we wrote it here fairly clearly, and we'll just say it for the record here. We will not be doing this project at the same time of either one of those projects. This bridge can, we feel comfortable that this culvert will last long enough that we can do this. We just need to make sure it gets into the program, get our design done, so that when those projects are complete, we can flip over and do this project at that time.
Harry?
Would this require closing the road?
We're looking at that option on whether or not, it's still kind of a little early in the design to fully understand that, and that's kind of where we're looking for the design funding here so that we can further develop that. It's a pretty small culvert. It doesn't have a lot of flow going through it. So it might be something that we could close the road, but it could be a, over the summer type closure and do the work where we just come in and have everything prepared, pull out the old culvert and put the new culvert in over a couple month timeframe.
Oh, we don't know.
But we don't know until we get the design, but,
Thank you.
I believe that's the way you described it when you came for the fiscal year
That's our
24
hope.
budget. It was to close it for the summer and whatever. I just, it's not a bridge, but I'd just like to throw into the mix the fact that in this period of time also, Central Middle School will be under construction, so that will create additional traffic issues as, because the school will be operating in addition to the construction project being there. So if you can get this done in the summertime, I think that's the most ideal time to do this project. Leslie?
I just wanted to ask about the timing of the release. So if, let's say you get the money, you have the money for design, let's assume you get that, and you build your design, you get the 2024 lots SIP award or 2025. Does that have a time component to it that you need to begin construction in a certain period of time or their award lapses?
The lot SIP program does have a time, but it's a much longer time frame, and they have a little bit more flexibility with it. So even if we were to get into the program in this next solicitation period, which may be slightly aggressive because they're talking of having the solicitation coming out in the end of this month. And so we're probably not gonna have the design far enough along. We'll probably put it in, and it probably will get told that we're not far enough along with it. But at least we've been, going to the well and asking for it, and when it does finally get
For
to that
next
point.
time,
So
right.
for the next time, it's priming the pump, so to speak, right? So, that's what we try to do with these projects, but,
Because the
but
other,
we feel that we'll be okay with,
being able to extend it if you needed to.
extend it if they need to, so.
On the other hand, if that hillside project, which I know there's still not clarity, there's lack of clarity on when that might start, potentially there could be a window to go between the projects, right? You just never know. So being ready to go.
That's kind of where we're looking to get it to the
Yeah.
point where it's kind of sitting on the shelf, ready to go in case there is a window that we could fit it in somewhere.
But the headline to the community is, this project will not overlap North Street
Correct.
Bridge or Hillside Putnam Avenue
Correct.
project.
So Leslie actually is led into a question. What are you hearing from the state? And at this point in time, what do you anticipate, if you could, share any update on the timing of the Hillside Road, Putnam Avenue Bridge?
There hasn't been any new information put out there recently. And we've asked a couple times, and they're still awaiting certain permitting aspects and things like that. So they have not given any firm timeframe to us.
So it's in the memo you provided us, you said that you're engaging WMC consultants for this work. This is the same firm that you're using on the North Street Bridge? I keep hearing things like that.
Correct.
And so, do we use them a lot, or, here's two bridges that aren't, or whatever, bridge culvert and a bridge that are close together. Is this a firm that we use frequently, or what is our experience? Or is this just the second time?
We've used them before on projects in the past. They're not our only bridge consultant by any means. We've used a variety of different ones. We've had good luck with their design capabilities, and they've they have a good team, so.
So, yes.
I want to make the motion if you're finished with your questions. I didn't know. if
Well,
you're-
I don't know if this is a question before or after the motion. So I'm going to raise it. The sheet that we have, Fairfield Road Culvert B replacement, which was the approval CIP sheet for fiscal year 2024, when this was approved, does have a statement, and I remember this very clearly, that there is reimbursement for the design phase as well as construction. And when we put together our conditions, and we have this one here, it's in our book. For this, it says, subject to release by the Board of Estimate and Taxation upon receipt of a report from DPW with information from the state or other such entity of the eligibility of the Fairfield Road culvert into the bridge reimbursement program and timing of such payment structure. And remember, this, is clear that this is into the bridge reimbursement program for the $250,000. So I did ask, just to make it clear, and the statement also talks about the reimbursement on the design aspect of it. So I did speak to Roland and said, is this something that we should send to the RTM? Because, I feel very responsible to the RTM when conditions are put on here. We're basically saying that this wasn't ready to be approved, but we understand that. We're all working together, and we will look at this and make sure that it's in compliance with what you want, and that, it will have this grant. And again, it's on the $250,000. So, I think, Roland and I talked about it, and he talked about it, that therefore, it doesn't meet the conditions, then it's a new appropriation. But the bottom line is, we've already appropriated something, and we have it in the Z Fund, funded by the Z Fund, correct, Roland? Which is what we always do. We always have 100% funding other than grants or bond, whatever it happens to be. So the question is, how do we handle this? Since, in my opinion, this does not, I have a responsibility to the RTM and the taxpayers to do what we said we would do. So any input? Leslie, I see your hand up. Are you going to respond to me?
I am.
Okay.
I think we probably have any number of other projects previously approved by this board that the financing component has been modified as we go. I don't see that the way that condition is written, it requires it to be in that specific program. We had information today, it's in a different program, which is going to provide the town with more funding for the total cost of the project at the end of the day. Yes, we're paying design funds 100%, but we're going to pay less for the construction funding, which is the bigger piece of it. The BET has responsibility for the financial affairs of the town. I do not see this as a substantive issue that requires it to go back to the
Right,
RTM.
and just on that point, on page 21 of the blue sheet from the CIP, it says that they check the box reimbursement, and it says, local bridge program 50% design and construction.
Design
and construction. So the point is now we're paying 100% for the design, but the reimbursement is 100% of the construction. So in fact, we're getting much greater reimbursement than we conveyed to the RTM by virtue of this to begin with. So to Leslie Moriarty's point, I think that's substantial.
But to date, there's no commitment that will be accepted into the program. Anyway, I'll accept the motion. I've made my point. I will accept the motion.
So I'll make the motion to recommend approval of PW3 for $250,000 for release of conditions on the Fairfield Road Bridge project of $250,000.
I second.
And make it
I'll
routine.
suggest routine.
Yeah, routine.
Routine. Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining? I'm abstaining, one. That, I think, is, so that motion passes 3-0-1. Thank you, Amy and Jim.
All right, thank
Just
you.
out of curiosity, I mean, I know this may not be in order and you don't have to answer, but why are you abstaining?
I'm sorry, to me, we have a responsibility to the RTM members. This is the way it went to the RTM, and this is the way it was approved. You don't have the committed grant yet or anything, David. I already explained it, and I think that's sufficient. And thank you, Gabriella, for coming to the meeting, too. Okay, so,
Could I just ask, as curiosity, Elliot, did you learn who that fourth person was?
Yes, I thought we gave you the name, no? Matt, oh.
don't worry about it. We'll
That's
fit.
all right, don't worry.
No, we're in good shape. We're in good shape. Okay, Roland, we have not received a economic conditions report, but is there any update or?
Well, last year, we had 3 pay periods in September. This year, we had 3 pay periods in August. So if you were to compare August this year, year-to-date, to August last year, year-to-date, you'd have a meaningless comparison. But it will be lined up next month, at the end of September.
Next month. I don't think we actually saw July either. So maybe as an interim, can you kind of put July and August together so we kind of get a little catch up and then, otherwise we got 3 months.
I can do that. Like I said, August is going to look,
But I mean, just put them together.
Year-to-date.
What?
Do
Yeah,
do a year-to-date.
Well, no, you have to fill in the months for the things, but just so that we kind of get a feel, because I don't think we have July yet, so we'll just kind of, that would be helpful. Just email it to us so that we have a better handle. I think that it would be worthwhile. So, okay, Roland, you're okay with that? So the next item originally was going to be heard. It's not going to be heard. It's the Affordable Housing Trust update. And just to give everyone the heads up, we will hear it in October. And just to give everyone the opportunity to kind of be ready for this, an email was received from Bill Finger, who is the co-chair of the Greenwich Affordable Housing Trust. And he basically gave notice on the appropriation of $1.1 million in these, that it's difficult for them to be spending this money in this period of time. And so we met, Pete and Roland, Harry and I did meet with Bill and Brooks Harris. And I think it was determined the best thing is to put some things together and then to come back to us in October. So that's the plan. And, but if anyone wants to look further, in the packet, Budget Committee packet, there's the notice from Bill Finger. There is a Greenwich Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The BET did not look at this. However, point number 7 in section 6.327 was something prepared, I believe, by Pete and Amina and Karen and Jeff Raymer, so that monies held in the Greenwich Affordable Housing Trust Fund can be returned, because this is a trust. So that's that section in your packet. It's highlighted in yellow. There's also another page of budget resolutions, and section 55, or budget resolution 55, COVID-19 reimbursements and grants. Another section that we all approved as budget committee, as BET members to the budget resolutions, reads, it gives flexibility. And so this particular reads, subject to approval of the BET, each town department with unspent funds from previously approved ARPA committee projects shall be permitted to transfer such unspent funds to other ARPA committee-approved projects within their department, so it's limited. So anyway, we'll address that next month.
Before we move on, I believe, I don't recall the exact date, but there will be an Affordable Housing Trust public meeting or information session that they are putting together September 23rd.
I want to say September 23rd in the Town Hall
date?
meeting room at
Yes, it is.
7:30.
That's correct.
I just think that, that's something that we can help publicize.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, and that's a very good point, Leslie. So, and this is meant for our community. Certainly, it's meant for the BET members, it's meant for RTM members, but certainly I encourage all members of the BET, Pete and Roland, if they want to come, to attend that. So I think that was, a good point. And they're also encouraging all RTM members to come and attend. And I assume maybe we'll see some P and Z and others there too. I don't, but that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. And I plan to attend. So the next item we have is approval of BET Budget Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion for July 9th?
Are those meetings in the packet?
July 9th was. July 9th is,
Was that our special meeting?
No,
Yeah.
July 16th was the special meeting.
oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I have made a mistake. Do I have a motion to approve the July 16th special meeting minutes?
That we approve the July 16th minutes.
I'll second them.
Moved by David Weisbrod, second by Leslie Moriarty, for the approval of July 16th, 2024 minutes, which was the special meeting. Those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. And the July 9th will be in next month's packet.
Okay.
I think in terms of chair report, I think, obviously bringing that up about the Affordable Housing Trust event was one thing, but I think we covered it in the appropriate place. And the other is to just say that we do have a new form for the blue sheet, so-called blue sheet, and it is supposed to really help us and make it much easier for the departments. I think that Samantha Longo, the finance executive assistant, has worked hard on this document. Do we have any other business?
If
Or
I
you
could,
want-
I just want to ask a question, because typically, and I know every year's been a little different, but maybe you can talk about your expectation for the budget guideline process and timing.
So I think budget, hopefully, we can be working on that in the next couple of weeks, and we can have first draft, if not whatever, at our October budget committee meeting.
I just think, and I don't know how we do this, but last year, when we approved budget guidelines in November, it was after the Board of Ed budget was already made public. And so I think if this board can figure out how to approve something in October, it would be, I think, appreciated by the departments, but also helpful to us.
And I agree. And hopefully they'll be simpler. And also, we'll be thinking about some new things too. And David is going to help us with that
I will do
special
my
letter.
very, very best.
You're going to go back for almost like 9 months, David, to put that data together.
I'm going to do my very, very best to do what I can to help.
So I guess our next, are you looking for when the October meeting is? It's October 16th at 1 PM.
I'm looking for the October 6th, yeah,
October 16th at 1 PM.
it's
Which
in
is a
my,
little later in the month.
right. So to the extent that the guidelines are circulated before, obviously, yeah. Then,
We've got more than a month.
yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. So next we have meeting adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by David, by David Weisbrod, seconded by Harry Fisher, that we adjourn the meeting at 2:56 PM. Those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Pete and Roland and Samantha, too.
Samantha, thank you.